Okay, welcome everybody to the May FinnFest Virtual USA lecture series. Greetings from Huntsville, Texas, where we are, part of us are. So Scott Kaukonen is going to be my co-host today, and he's my colleague here at Sam Houston and assistant editor of the Journal of Finnish Studies, because FinnFest is doing this in collaboration with the Journal of Finnish Studies and sponsored by Sam Houston State University. That's why we're in Texas. So, so my name is Helena Halmari, and we've met before if you have participated in these seminars, webinars before. So basically, just a couple of reminders. In June, FinnFest will offer a music program. Diane Järvi is going to be presenting her songs, and please mark your calendars for that. It will certainly be a fantastic experience. The music series is organized by Professor James Leary and produced by FinnFest and the Nordic Folklore Project at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So we have these two series going on, lecture series, uneven months or odd months, and then the music series in even months. So in July, we will resume with a longer webinar consisting of 2 lectures on the same Saturday, and this is Eila Stepanova and Frog from Helsinki, and they will be presenting on Karelian laments. Eila is a world-renowned expert there, and Frog is presenting on Finland and the Vikings, so there's exciting stuff coming up. Today's webinar is recorded and it can be viewed later on FinnFest's website. These events are open for everyone. We, however, would be very appreciative, or FinnFest would be very, very appreciative if you would donate so that we can continue to work in providing these events for you. This is a webinar, so don't be worried if your picture doesn't show. That's the nature of webinars. We will, after the lecture, we will take questions, and Scott will be moderating the questions. You have to type your questions in the chat function, so open the chat function, type your question at the bottom of the chat space and click return. So we'll
I'll use that there's a Q&A function, a button they can click to. So either one.
Yes, either one. Yes, wonderful. And now it's time for me to introduce our presenter, Tuomas Hovi, who is here all the way from Turku, Finland. So a little bit different time zone. It's starting to be evening there, 7 p.m., a little bit past. And Tuomas Hovi is a folklorist from Turku, a University of Turku. He has worked at the University of Turku as senior researcher and Migration Institute also as senior researcher. And his areas of expertise and research interests include folklore, heritage, tradition, tourism, authenticity, ethnicity, and cultural identity. So that covers a lot of ground. Very interesting research that he has been doing and is currently doing also. His current research is funded by the Finnish Cultural Foundation, and it focuses on the cultural and ethnic identity and heritage of Finnish Americans currently living in the United States, a lot of us. So let me give the floor to Dr. Tuomas Hovi, and his presentation is titled "The Kalevala in Modern Finland: Influencing Popular Culture, Arts and Business Life." And I believe he's going to show to us that Kalevala is not that dusty thing that all the junior high kids just hated. It's live, it's influential. So the floor is yours, Dr. Hovi.
Thank you. Yes, so thank you for having me, and nice to. Well, I was almost trying to say nice to see you all, but nice that you all here. And like Helena said, it's evening here, but nevertheless not too late, so no problem there. So my name is Tuomas Hovi. I'm a PhD and a folklorist working at the University of Turku. Last year I worked at the Migration Institute of Finland doing a project about Finns living abroad, and I live in Turku in Finland, the red spot on the map of Finland there. And my current research project, like Helena said, is the heritage and cultural and ethnic identity of Finnish Americans in the USA today, and it's funded by the Finnish Cultural Foundation. Just to start with a couple of things about Kalevala, just in case that it's not that familiar to everybody. It is the Finnish national epic. It was compiled and edited by Elias Lönnrot, and it's based on the epic folk poems he had collected in Finland and in Karelia. The first edition of the Kalevala appeared in 1835, and a second expanded version of the Kalevala in 1849. 1835 and 1849, yes. And this so-called new Kalevala is the version which has been read in Finland ever since, and upon which most of the translations are based. So Elias Lönnrot studied Latin, Greek, history, and literature at the University of Turku. He also received a medical degree in 1832. He worked as a doctor and as a professor of Finnish language and literature. He did 10 different folk poetry collecting trips to Savo and Karelia, mostly into eastern and northern Finland. And his longest collecting trip took almost a year, from the 13th of October from 1841 to the 20th of October in 1842. And he mainly walked around, and he collected these poems by hand. And there are actually different Kalevalas. So the old Kalevala, the first one, was published in 1835. It's called Kalevala taikka vanhoja Karjalan runoja Suomen kansan muinoisista vanhoista ajoista, which means Kalevala or old Karelian poems from the ancient old times of Finnish people. Then the new Kalevala in 1849, then a shortened Kalevala or school Kalevala in 1862, as Kanteletar, which is said to be this kind of a sister collection to Kalevala, came in 1840, and a Sikerma Kalevala or a cluster Kalevala firstly already in 1833, but it was published in 2007. And also this Runokokous Väinämöisestä tai Alku-Kalevala, poems about Väinämöinen or pre-Kalevala in 1833. And here you can see that all these different versions of the Kalevala differ in length. For example, the old Kalevala had 32 poems and 12,078 verses, whilst the new Kalevala in 1849 had 50 poems and 22,795 verses, so it's a lot longer. The shortened Kalevala or school Kalevala had the same amount of poems, 50, but they were shortened, so it only has 9,732 verses. The Kanteletar, which is this sister collection to Kalevala, has 652 songs and 22,201 verses. And the Sikerma Kalevala or cluster Kalevala, which is in 3 parts, it's about songs about Lemminkäinen, songs about Väinämöinen, and wedding songs. It has altogether 3,191 verses, and the so-called pre-Kalevala has 5,052 verses. So all of these different versions have differ in length, but more or less the basic structure is the same in most of them. Well, not in Kanteletar, but in the Kalevalas. The main plot is very complicated, and this does not do justice to it. This is not even a shortened version. This is just trying to put the basic main ideas of Kalevala down. So this is not even in a nutshell, it's less than that. But the main idea between Kalevala, in Kalevala is this fight between Kaleva and Pohjola. So it firstly, there's the courting of the Maiden of Pohjola, which stars Väinämöinen, Ilmarinen, and Lemminkäinen. Then the making of the Sampo, a mythical device that creates wealth and well-being. The stealing of the Sampo, making of the Kantele, old gods and religions leaving Finland, and Christianity arriving. So this is in Kalevala in a very, very tight nutshell, but please do and this does not do it justice, so please read the real thing. But these are the main things in Kalevala. The main characters are Väinämöinen. He's a leading figure, a seer, a sage, a shaman, a creator god, and maker of Kantele. Joukahainen, a young man who envies Väinämöinen and challenges him to a duel, loses, and promises his sister Aino to Väinämöinen in exchange for his life, and later ambushes and tries to kill Väinämöinen. Aino is Joukahainen's sister, and after being promised to Väinämöinen, she escapes, drowns herself, and is then transformed into a fish. Ilmarinen is a smith, the maker of Sampo, this mythical device that creates wealth and well-being, and helper of Väinämöinen. Annikki, sister of Ilmarinen, tells Ilmarinen about Väinämöinen's plans to go to Pohjola and court the Maiden of Pohjola. Lemminkäinen, a fearless risk-taker, an avid fighter, an ardent lover, goes to Pohjola and is killed but brought back to life by his mother. Louhi, the mistress and leader of Pohjola, Väinämöinen's most formidable adversary, an opponent, and a powerful witch. Kyllikki, famed for her beauty, abducted by Lemminkäinen. It's actually interesting that Kyllikki is a much more stronger character in the folk poems than in the Kalevala book. Then Antero Vipunen, a long dead giant and a sage. Väinämöinen goes to him to get the missing magical words in order for his to create a boat for him and his men to go to Pohjola to steal the Sampo. And then Kullervo, a tragic figure, son of Kalervo. He is a strong boy being brought up in his uncle's house as a servant. Later he sold it to Ilmarinen as a slave. The wife of Ilmarinen treats him badly and he kills her. Then Kullervo finds that his family is to be alive, unknowingly seduces his own sister, takes revenge on Untamo's household, and then kills himself with his sword because the thing with his sister. And this Kullervo, for example, influenced very much the writer J.R.R. Tolkien, especially in his books Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, and Children of Húrin. So these are not all the characters of in Kalevala, but let's say the most usually referenced characters. Main places are Kalevala, the region led by Väinämöinen, also known as Väinölä or Päivälä or Suomela and Luotola in the folk poems. Pohjola, a region and a farmstead led by Louhi, dark and dangerous land, a ghoulish atmosphere, also known as Sariola, and there are similarities between Pohjola and Tuonela is the land of the dead, also known as Manala. Then, of course, Kantele, which is a very important instrument in Kalevala. It's a magical instrument made by Väinämöinen, traditional Finnish and Karelian plucked string instrument with varying number of strings. Traditionally, it has 5 strings. It's a very old instrument, about 2,000 years old. It became the Finnish national instrument in the 19th century because of Kalevala's influence. And also Elias Lönnrot played the Kantele and actually made many himself. And there's a famous painting called the Väinämöinen's Play by Robert Wilhelm Ekman from 1866. So this is and of course the political background for Kalevala. Finland at that time was a part of the Russian Empire, and ideas about romanticism, nationalism, and Karelianism were growing. And actually, Lönnrot mentioned several times that he saw it as his mission to strengthen Finnish self-esteem and make Finns feel equal with other nationalities and nations with the Kalevala. And when Kalevala was published, it was heralded as an important epic for the nation's culture and history, and it was compared to, for example, to the Iliad and Odyssey of Homer, of the Greeks. There's also been a lot of talk about the authenticity of Kalevala. Early on, there were questions about Lönnrot's role and the authenticity of the poems in Kalevala. And actually there is and never was a whole coherent epic called Kalevala among the so-called folk. And nowadays the understanding of Lönnrot's influence over the material has become more and more clear, and nowadays Kalevala should be seen as both a national epic and Lönnrot's own interpretation of an epic. And it's not a folk epic as such, and we might even consider Lönnrot as a poem singer himself. And Kalevala is very much Elias Lönnrot's own work. For example, he added and combined characters and storylines from different poems. He made up about 3% of the verses himself. He made some changes to the language, to the meter, to the spelling, to 50% of the verses. And of the verses in Kalevala, 14% don't have an exact match in the notes of the traditional poems, but they were combined from different folk poem material. And 33% of the poems have an exact match in the collected poems. So Kalevala is both authentic and inauthentic, depending what you mean by the word authentic. The Kalevala is very much an authentic national epic. And there are authentic folk poems collected from singers in the Kalevala. But Kalevala is not an authentic, coherent folk epic. So there's a difference between a national epic and a folk epic. But this does not in any way diminish the value or importance of Kalevala. Because Kalevala became and still is the Finnish national epic. Nowadays, the origins are better understood, but it heavily influenced Finnish culture, and it still does, like I'm going to show you. It is the most widely translated book of Finnish literature. It's translated and published in at least 59 different languages. And Kalevala Day is celebrated in Finland on the 28th of February, the same day as the Finnish Culture Day. So Finnish Culture Day is the same as Kalevala Day. So that also says a lot about the importance of Kalevala to Finnish culture. Kalevala inspired a lot of Finnish artists already in the 19th century and early 20th century. For example, in literature, very many famous Finnish writers like Zacharias Topelius, Aleksis Kivi-Juhani-aho, and Eino Leino, for example, used the Kalevala and were influenced by it. In classical music, it has been a very influential piece. It is estimated that the total number of Kalevala-related compositions is about 500. Famous composers like Philip von Schatz, Robert Kajanus, Oskar Merikanto, Erkki Melartin, Leevi Mareta, and of course Jean Sibelius have utilized Kalevala. In art, Kalevala has been used in very different, very various ways. It has been visualized by nearly 400 artists in roughly 2,500 different works of art. Famous Finnish artists like Robert Wilhelm Ekman, Sigfrid August Keinänen, Pekka Halonen, and Väinö Blomsten, for example, have used Kalevala, and of course maybe the most famous one of all, Akseli Gallekallela. And these are a couple of his famous pieces of art, which are later on referenced in popular culture that I will show you. First one is The Forging of the Sampo from 1893, then The Defense of Sampo from 1896, Lemminge's Mother from 1897, and Kullervo Sets Off for War 1901. And these are not, of course, all of his works, but these are some of works that are regularly referenced in Finnish culture. Kalevala has also influenced Finnish culture in the business world. Many businesses took names from the Kalevala already in the early 19th century. For example, the first 4 Finnish locomotives, which were made in England in 1861 and 62, were called Ilmarinen, Lemminkäinen, Suomi, and Alutar. So the first 2 from the Kalevala. The first Finnish steamship from 1833 was called Ilmarinen. Finnish warships during the Second World War called Ilmarinen and Väinämöinen, for example. And a famous Finnish icebreaker was called Sampo. First one in 1898 and a second one in 1960. Then many insurance companies like Sampo, Tapiola, Pohjola, Kullervo, Ilmarinen, Kalervo, construction firms like Lemminkäinen, foods like Väinämöisen palttoonapit, a rice snack that you can see in the picture there, or Aino ice cream, or the icebreaker Sampo, and Kalevala jewelry, which is quite famous, Kalevala Koru firm, which is owned by the Kalevalaisten Naisten Liitto, a Finnish organization of women. And many of the names and designs of the jewelry are influenced by Kalevala and also by real found historical and archaeological jewelry. There was actually quite a stir recently with the Kalevala jewelry because their website used to be Kalevala Koru, now it's just Kalevala. So they reference to themselves as just as Kalevala. And there was a law case, a court case a couple of months ago where a person tried to utilize the name Kalevala for her own travel business, and the Kalevala jewelry actually fought it in the court, and they didn't want that firm to utilize the name, and this caused quite a stir. And it says that in a way that people were telling that the Kalevala Koru cannot own the name Kalevala. It belongs to all Finns. So it also tells a little bit about the influence or the meaning of Kalevala in Finland. Kalevala's influence on Finnish culture has been also in names. So there are very many names influenced or based on Kalevala, like Ilmari, Jouko, Kalervo, Kaleva, Kauko, Kullervo, Kyllikki, Marjatta, Mielikki, Osmo, Pellervo, Tapio, Tellervo, Unto, Vellamo, Väinö, Ahti, Annikki, Kimmo, Nyyrikki, Sampo, Sampsa, Terhikki, Tiera, Untamo, and Väinämö, for example. And also the name Aino, which was made up by Lönnrot from the word Ainoa, meaning only. So if your name is Aino, or you know someone who is named Aino, that is a name made up by Lönnrot for Kalevala. So the Kalevala in modern Finland and its use in popular culture. I'll start from an anecdote a couple of years ago, where in April of 2019, 2 Finnish artists, writer Juha Hurme and musician Hannu Tuomari Nurmio, announced a Kalevala Fest, where through music, theater, and other forms of popular culture, they wanted to upgrade Kalevala. According to them, they wanted to renew timeless folk poetry from the tomb of gala speeches, national costumes, birch bark shoes, lengthy and boring poetry reading, and systematic torture of school children. Now, one might ask, is there a need for this? Let's just start by the systematic torture of school children. Because Kalevala has been mandatory reading in schools, it has had the effect of alienating many students because the language is hard to understand, and this is because of the Kalevala meter, and also because it's this dry bun pakkopulla. You know that if you force kids to do something, they might not like it very much. But the teachers also realized this, and there has been many instruction books and anthologies written to help the students to understand it. first one already in 1926 called Kalevalan opetusopas, a teaching guide to Kalevala. But I would say that students are both interested and uninterested in Kalevala. It all depends on how it's being taught. But just to a couple of about the Kalevala meter, which makes the reading of Kalevala a little bit problematic. It is very long, so you don't have to understand what it says here, but this is a part of a poem, 6 from the Kalevala, and the way it's said in Kalevala meter, which is this kind of a trochaic tetrameter, it takes 56 words, and to say the same thing in modern Finnish, it takes 24 words. So it's to put it nicely, the language of the Kalevala is very rich. Otherwise, it might be very long and boring and hard to understand. So this is what makes Kalevala hard to understand for many, let's say, modern Finns. But there has also been, with these instruction books, along them also many game-based learning material. For example, Kalevalan Kankahilla from 2010, which was produced by the Kalevala Society. And then Sammon Salat, Secrets of Sambo, game-based learning material, co-produced by the Finnish National Agency for Education in 2017. Kalevala has also been taught in schools as rap music with rap. So because the language is poetic, it's easy to write rap verses from the Kalevala. So this is a way to get the school children interested in the Kalevala. And then I'll just like to tell you a little bit. I was in 2019. I was in my daughter's school, the Hannuniitty Elementary School in Turku. They have a festival there, and one class performed a song called Vaka vanha Väinämö, this old-fashioned song. And they had a choir, they had speaking parts, they had rap parts, they had different instruments like the ukulele, kantele, bongos, djembe drums, glockenspiels, and boom whackers, for example. So this to me doesn't sound like it's boring or dated, or definitely not the torture of school children. So it all depends on how it's being taught to children. But Kalevala has influenced a lot of popular music, popular culture, like books, music, arts, games, and movies. And in a way, Kalevala has become a kind of cultural inventory for artists to draw inspirations, influences, and even direct source material. There are, for example, a comic, a Donald Duck comic, or a heavy metal album, a modern art piece, and book cover and graphic novel cover. And just an example of how this famous painting of actually Kalevala has been used, a couple of examples. Here you can see the same with Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck and other Walt Disney characters, or in the book cover of Sankarit, a book by Johanna Sinisalo. Here you can see Väinämöinen is being replaced by Elvis Presley, another famous sage or singer of poems, to say. Kalevala inspired literature during the publication of Kalevala and in the late 19th and early 20th century, and it still inspires Finnish writers today. For example, Kalevan Solki, a book by Jari Tammi from 2002, is a modern retelling of the story. Sankarit Heroes by Johanna Sinisalo from 2003. It's a modern retelling or pastiche of Kalevala. Roger Repo ja Tuonen väki from 2005 by Harri V. Hietikko is a crime fiction about Kalevala. Mikko Karppis Väinämöisen vyö from 2007 is a crime fiction fantasy novel with Kalevala influences. And Seija Vilén's Pohjan Akka from 2012 is a retelling of the story of Kalevala from a woman's point of view. So you can see that Kalevala still inspires a lot of Finnish writers even today. There are also many comics, like for example, Mauri Kunnas' Koirien Kalevala, The Canine Kalevala, 1992, and the English translation from 2004. It's a children's book, and it also became a play and an opera later on. Don Rosa's Sammon salaisuus, Secret of Sampo. It has the quest for Kalevala, is kind of a story about Kalevala, where Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge go to find Sampo. Now, this is not a work of a Finn. Don Rosa is American, but Donald Duck comics are very are popular, hugely popular in Finland, and Don Rosa actually wrote this as for Finns, this story. And actually, Uncle Scrooge meets Elias Lönnrot in that comic. Then Christian Huittula's Kalevala, a graphic novel from 2000, and the English version came in 2005. And Petri Hiltula's Väinämöisen paluu, The Return of Väinämöinen from 2001 onwards. Now I'll show you a little bit of this Don Rosa's Uncle Scrooge or Donald Duck comic, where Uncle Scrooge actually meets Elias Lönnrot as a child. When Uncle Scrooge was a child, he was shining shoes, and then he says that, but your shoes are made of paper. And Elias Lönnrot says, no, these are bast shoes. They are made of birch bark, and I use them because I lecture about Finnish poem singers at the university. And then this part that warms my heart as a folklorist, Uncle Scrooge asks, do you make a lot of money with that? And he says, not a penny. So it wasn't very useful for him. Then about the Mauri Kunnas' Canine Kalevala, he uses these Akseli Kallenkallala's famous paintings in very nice ways, I would say. These are the Lemminkäis's mother and the one in a Canine Kalevala. Then Joukahainen goes to war, same one in the children's book, and then the making of Sampo. And I think that this is a good way to introduce these famous paintings to children, and they can later on find the real ones and say, oh, I remember that from that children's book. Kalevala has also been very hugely influential in music, for example, especially in folk music and heavy music. And I have a couple of examples for you. One is Tuuletar and the other one is Amorphis, two bands. Tuuletar is a vocal folk hop group that uses beatbox rhythms that meet Finnish folk tradition and global influences. And there's especially one song called Uho from 2017, which has lyrics from the Kalevala, slightly altered from poems 3, 6, and 36. And hopefully, just check that the share sound, that it should work. Just give an idea how Kalevala can be used in music. It starts very traditionally.
Oli nuori Joukahainen, laiha poika lappalainen, kulkumia sanoja lauluja laeltavaksi. Kaiken aikansa kaehti Väinämöistä laulajaksi, itseänsä paremmaksi runojensa lausujaksi. Vanha Väinämöinen tietäjä, iän ikuinen teitteensä ajaja matkojensa mittelijä. Ajoi tiellä vastatusten, tarttui Aisan päähän, länget puuttui
here you can see an example how these old poems can be used in modern music. Then Amorphis, a Finnish heavy metal band, frequently use the Kalevala as a source or inspiration for lyrics. For example, their album Tales from the Thousand Lakes uses lyrics straight from the English translation of Kalevala. Elegy from '96 uses lyrics straight from the English translation of Kanteletar. Then the album Eclipse tells the tale of Kullervo. Silent Waters tells the tale of Lemminkäinen. Skyforger tells the tale of Ilmarinen, and The Beginning of Times tells the tale of Väinämöinen. And they also have this song called My Kantele. Its lyrics are straight from the Kanteletar. And I understand that not all of you might be fans of heavy music, so don't worry, this is an acoustic version of that song. At least to me, this guitar riff is very folk type and also a little bit like kantele type of music. Examples how these old poems can be used in modern music into different genres of music, for example. So the Kalevala in modern Finland is both very well known and unknown at the same time. But what I mean by this is that, let's say, everybody knows of the Kalevala and maybe the main plot or the main characters, but they don't know it very thoroughly. One great example of this is the private Finnish hospital chain called Mehiläinen, which means bee. And the name Mehiläinen bee comes from the Kalevala, from the story about the death and resurrection of Lemminkäinen. Lemminkäinen's mother managed to persuade the Mehiläinen, the bee, the king of the forest flowers, to fetch nectar and mead from various herbs to serve as an ointment. And this ointment helped Lemminkäinen to recover, to battle the storms of life again. Now, this name is a great name for a hospital chain. I mean, since it's the animal, the bee, that brought the ingredients or medicine for Lemminkäinen's mother to heal and resurrect her son, bring someone back from the death. But the problem is that people nowadays don't know the Kalevala that well, and they don't know about the meaning of this name. So they just assume that it's a nice name, Mehiläinen, and nothing else. So it's an example where Kalevala is known, but not that known in details. So, like I said, Kalevala is both very well known and unknown at the same time. And Kalevala has become kind of a cultural inventory for artists to draw inspirations, influences, and even direct source material, like you saw in the music examples. And in a way, Kalevala has become similar to, or meaning everything ancient or fantastic or mystic or sacred. But it's not outdated, and it's not dusty or boring by any means. And I'll just stop with this comic strip cartoon from Fingerpori, by Pertti Jarlatis from the Helsingin Sanomat newspaper, and it says that Väinämöinen soittaa kannelta. Now this means Väinämöinen plays the kantele, but because many words in Finnish have two meanings, this can also mean that Väinämöinen phones from the deck. like it said here, and he says that, could you pick, tulisiko terminaali vastannut niin monta casea? Could you pick me up from the terminal? I have so many beer cases. Now, this is every Finn knows this situation. It's someone coming from a cruise ship from Estonia or from Sweden and brings a lot of beer because it's cheaper there. Now, the reason I show you this comic strip is that it would not work if people wouldn't understand about Väinämöinen and Kantele. So the maker of this comic strip, Pertti Arla, had to assume that everybody in Finland knows about Väinämöinen and Kantele, which makes this a funny joke. So it can be said that the Kantele is so embedded in, Kalevala is so embedded in Finnish culture that everybody understands this reference, or almost everybody, and that makes the joke work. Then I'll just end with this picture because I found this online. It's someone called, an artist called Kami Koopa from 2013, and she has made this version of Lemminkäisen's mother by using My Little Pony figures, which I found just beautiful and a great example of using this old story and old painting with new popular cultural items. Thank you very much.
All right, we have already a number of questions and comments here, and I'm going to hand this over to Scott so he can moderate the questions to Tuomas. And we have already been replying to some of the questions. Just for everybody's information, Tuomas's recording will be posted on FinnFest's website, and also are we able to post the PowerPoint, Tuomas?
Yes.
Yes, so the PowerPoint will be there. I know that there have been some issues with the voice going a little bit up and down for some listeners, some participants. I hope that, you know, when you look at the PowerPoint, that's gonna help you to hear if you missed something. But I guess we just have to understand that this voice comes from really far away, and internet is the way it is sometimes. But thank you for your patience here. Okay.
Well, Suzelle Lynch has a question, and Tuomas, I'll let you handle this. So how does Kalevala dovetail with religion, I think specifically Lutheran in Finland? So maybe talk about what's the relationship between those, you know, between religious practices and the culture from which it comes.
Well, in a way, Kalevala ends with the coming of Christianity to Finland. So Väinämöinen leaves, and the son of Marjatta, which meaning Jesus, comes to Finland. So in that sense, it's the denouncing of the old gods and old religion and coming of the new one. But I don't think that the official Finnish Lutheran Church has any strong opinions or stances with the Kalevala or vice versa. There are many how would you say, maybe modern day pagans that somehow use the Kalevala, not so much Kalevala, but the old poems behind Kalevala. So it can work as a kind of a holy book or sorts to some modern pagans in Finland, but other than that, there's not a strong correlation or a strong at least not any negative reactions with the church and the Kalevala as far as I know.
We have a question from Lois Shelton. What is the easiest way to read the interpretation of the Kalevala?
easiest way to, I mean, there are a couple of English translations. Is that what you mean, or?
I mean, I think people are having questions about how do you interpret the Kalevala and looking for a single interpretation of the Kalevala, right? And so maybe you could address its construction, right? And
yeah,
it really doesn't, it's not like a modern novel, right? So maybe you can talk about its construction and what that means for
yeah. Well, because it's a compilation of by Elias Lönnrot, there has been a lot of talk, especially with some theosophic people, that they try to find some deeper meaning behind the Kalevala, or deeper understanding what the story is about and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say that there actually is such, especially not with Kalevala, because it is a combination there with different poems. Lönnrot took characters, combined characters, combined poems, and such. So I don't think that there is a deeper meaning as such, unfortunately. Of course. Sorry. There are many interpretations about the role of women in that society, and the role of let's say religion, and there are some ideas about religion in Kalevala, or the old Finnish religion, but to try to find one specific interpretation what the whole story is about, then that might be a little bit difficult to do.
If I may add, I've been teaching the Kalevala now a couple of times here for my Texas sophomores, and it seems that they are getting everybody. I'm an advocate of the reader response approach to any piece of literature, so they will be getting whatever they need to get, and finding, if somebody's interested in women's issues, they find a ton of topics there. Religion, again, I think Lönnrot was really good at kind of balancing the paganism against the religion, so that he did not get that counter reaction from the Lutheran Church, and the richness of the Kalevala. I think it has something to give to everybody. There are so many stories and so many aspects to the human life. How I introduce it to my students is that this is about humans. This is about life. These things happen. You read the news, and these kinds of things are happening there all the time. So that may be a simplification, but I think there's something for everyone there. Do we have more questions? Somebody was asking if Tuomas had seen the recent theater piece in Turku about the Kalevala.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen that. Know of it, but I haven't seen it.
Sherry Sampson mentions too, you have Pentikainen's work, the Kalevala mythology too, for people who sort of want a deeper understanding of, like, at least his approaches to some of these questions that have been on for a while now. It's a good text in English for people to look at.
Yeah.
One thing I might add, because several people are asking about translations in English, and there are 4 or 5, I forget. I mean, the most common, the easiest translation to find is Keith Bosley's, which was published by Oxford World's Classic. A number of us are fans of Eino Freiberg's translation, illustrated translation, which came out a number of years ago, which is in a hardback. It's a beautiful edition. And some have mentioned Francis Magoon's translation, I think from the early 50s. And Magoon's feels much more like, for me at least, like for the academic study of it, for sort of learning things and getting behind the text, that was very helpful. Though as poetry, because of its poetry that's being performed, and because of the Kalevala meter, any translator has to make decisions between how faithful do I want to be to the meter, how faithful do I want to be to a literal interpretation, how free am I going to be to use words that will be understood by my contemporary readers in English to get the idiom and the understanding of what's being said. So I think with each of the translations, certain sacrifices are being made depending on the primary goal of the translator. So depending on which translation you choose may depend on sort of what you want from the text, what kind of text do you want?
And another thing, I already wrote it as an answer to somebody's chat or Q&A. Irma-Riitta Järvinen has published a really nice, concise, there you go.
Yeah, the Kalevala guide.
The Kalevala guide, if you are a beginner, that is a really good. It gives summaries of all the 50 poems in the Bosley translation, and it gives summaries of the main characters as well, and the main cultural influences and so on and so forth. So that's a really good place to start. It doesn't cost a lot, and it's available in English here in the States.
Oh, yeah, it's blurry. I think it's because of this. Sorry.
Linda Hoffman is asking you to show the guide again.
Yeah.
They back it up by your face because that's where it's going to be closest.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Kalevala guide, if you just Google Kalevala guide.
And also the Finnish Literature Society has very good pages about the Kalevala. So that's also something that I recommend if you're interested in the background and all of these about the Kalevala. So that's a good place to go online.
Tuomas, can you talk a little bit? A couple people are asking about the regions of Finland where the Kalevala runos came from. So maybe talk a little bit about Lönnrot and where he went on his journeys to get these poems.
Yeah, so they are from the most of the eastern part, and from more nowadays Karelia, so nowadays Russia. So it's there has been talks about the Finnishness of Kalevala since the poems were collected from the Karelia or modern Russian part, but many of these stories have also been thought that they were told also in the Western Finland, but they gradually migrated to Eastern, that they were lost in the Western parts of Finland, but that they might have been or they lived longer, so to speak, in Eastern parts of Finland. I can show you a map of the, if I'll just find it here quite fast, so about the Lönnrot's travels where he went, but it was mostly the eastern and eastern part of Finland. Just show you so here you can see the map of Finland and where he went. So it's very much on the eastern Russian border and then to Karelia, modern day Russia. So these were the main roads that or collective trips that he took.
Tuomas, can you say a little bit perhaps about how the poems would have been performed in the original context in the Kalevala singers, and when that practice came to an end, or if it did?
They would be sung aloud in groups, or not sung in groups, but one or two people would have usually sang the songs in two different groups of people. When it was disconnected, or when it stopped, I think in the late 19th, early 20th century. About
Okay, somebody was asking how you became interested in the Kalevala, in working on the Kalevala.
I'm mostly interested in the use of tradition. So in this case, I'm interested in how Kalevala is used in different ways. So I'm not that interested, so to speak, in the Kalevala as such, but I'm more interested in the way it's used nowadays. So that's my main points of interests within folklore, the use of folklore.
Okay, we try to keep this within the hour. There's one more question. Other classes of discussions of Kalevala at University of Wisconsin-Madison, I would have to refer that. We'll provide that information on the website. We have here in Sam Houston State every now and then, but and I know Finlandia University, Hilary Joy Virtanen teaches the Kalevala there. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate the audience joining us. We had
just a short answer, because I saw somebody asked about the language of Kalevala compared to modern Finland. So I would say that it's very difficult as for modern Finland because of the poetic meter that it has. So it's and that's what makes it a little bit difficult for people to understand, because it's not like I showed the one picture where it takes 54 words to say something in Kalevala meter and 24 words in modern Finland, or modern Finnish. So it's quite hard to understand the language, and it's somewhat also old-fashioned words and things like that. Yeah. Sorry.
My personal approach when I read the Kalevala is I even though I'm a native Finn, I got my schooling in Finland. I read the Kalevala here, and I have Bosley's translation here. So that way I feel that I'm getting everything. It's fascinating language in English, in Finnish, so it's really great. So we had a large number of participants here, above 160, I believe. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Dr. Hovi, for giving us this fascinating presentation. So look for in a few days, look for the FinnFest webpage, and we'll have the recording there. We'll have a resources list also for those who are interested, and I'm sure that you can also email Tuomas Hovi directly if you have any further questions, or Scott or me. So thank you so much for everyone, and I hope to see a lot of you next month for Diane Järvi's presentations. Thank you. Bye.